Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debbie Silber, and today's guest is Debbie Lichter. As the founder of Freedom Embodied Academy, Debbie Lichter has helped women worldwide for over a decade get free from food addiction and obsession so they can stop holding back and have the confidence to authentically shine their light. As a food addiction and embodiment expert who worked for Cosmopolitan magazine internationally, Debbie navigated her own path to freedom from food and drug addiction, codependency, severe anxiety, and self-doubt, and today combines 20 years of experience in the health and fitness industry with her signature Congruence Code system to help women get free and stay free from all addictions, feel lighter, speak up confidently, and be comfortable in their own skin. If you're struggling with your relationship with food, you're going to love this episode. Food issues are so common for so many reasons and are also common after an experience with betrayal. When we're misusing food, we're betraying our own inner guidance. So to help us unpack that, I'm having a conversation with my friend Debbie Lichter. Here we go. Okay, everybody, we have my friend Debbie Lichter with us today. And, of course, the show is From Betrayal to Breakthrough. We're talking about a different type of betrayal today. We're talking about betrayal of our own inner guidance. And when we feel betrayed by our own inner guidance, things can really go sideways. So here, as one of my friends and experts on how to get it back on track, is Debbie Lichter. Welcome, Debbie.
Aw, it's so good to be here with you, Deb. I love it.
Yeah, we're going to have a great conversation. I can tell. Let's just even talk about what is inner guidance. Let's just start there.
Oh my gosh, fantastic question. Well, so I believe that inner guidance is, it's actually comprised of three parts. So you've got your gut instinct, you've got your sixth sense intuition, and then divine inspiration. So you've got instinct, intuition, and inspiration. And I feel like it forms this inner trifecta of trust where we can be informed in each moment by, what our body's telling us, but why, just by what that sense, that sixth sense that you just kind of have, or just really hearing some inspired guidance coming through. And what I find is that, most of the women who I tend to work with, because I work with women who struggle with their relationship with food addiction and food obsession and this kind of thing. And I would say 100% of the time, actually, there is some kind of, inner doubt and lack of self-trust that's going on. And, and what's so interesting is that what happens when we're not living by that inner guidance, when we're not trusting ourselves, is that we do two things. We do two things that are really, really, hurtful to us in the long term. The one thing that we do is we become dependent on the opinions of others, or on the opinions of society or cultural norms or whatever. And as it relates to one's relationship with food, at least, this is like you go online and you're looking up the diets, you read the books and you're getting the diet and you're listening to all the different, all the information, the podcasts and everything on what should I eat and what can I have and what can't I have. And it's like someone else is dictating to you what you need to put in your own body. But we do this in so many other ways as well, because, if you're walking around feeling this lack of confidence, this inner doubt, I can't trust my own choices is what I hear from a lot of women, as it relates to food, as it relates to partners, as it relates to people, as it relates to life, can't trust my own choices. And so then we're looking for the outside world of that validation of, can you affirm my choices? And that even sometimes, extends into looking for validation for our own sense of worth and value and identity. And so now you have this experience where it's you're essentially hemorrhaging power into the outside world, because your locus of value and worth and power is outside of you in external influences, in other people's opinions, and it keeps us really off center. It keeps us off balance internally.
As you were saying that, the first thing that came to mind was when I was a new mom. I was a new mom, and I assumed anyone knew better than me. I didn't know this territory. I had never been in this role. This is the most foreign experience ever. Everyone must know better. And and as you're explaining it, I remember feeling that way, where I just felt like I had no indication within, where I wasn't tapped into it, that I knew what was best. And it just threw it out to everybody else. You must know better. And I see that. I could see it how I was back then, and you can really see it playing out in so many areas. And you're right. And this is even why when people just even come to the PBT Institute for help and they assume we know better, we only know better until you get back on your feet. That's it. And I see this so often, where we just feel like that doctor, that coach, that guru, that whoever must know better than us. And we turn down our intuition, and we turn down that internal compass that's letting us know we're on or off track. It's a great way. It's a great way to see it. And so now imagine, because I always try to get into the minds of my listeners and viewers, they're like, wow, that's the way I've been living completely. And so if I see something, if I read something, if someone looks good, I assume they must know better. Let me just do what they're doing. Mm-hmm. What do we do with that?
Yeah. Well, I want to answer that. And I want to speak about also the other thing that happens when we're walking around with the sense of inner doubt, because it kind of is all going to come back to answering your question with that. Because the one thing that we do is we become dependent on these external factors. I call it being caught up in the external feedback loop. The other thing that we do, because when you're caught up in the external feedback loop, it feels really off balance and you're not in your center, and it can just perpetuate that feeling of self-doubt, is that then we start to try to get things under control. And because, again, if my sense of worth and value and identity is now caught up with your feedback, your validation, your impression of me, then I need to work double time to make sure that I'm coming across a certain way. I want to make sure that you like me. I want to make sure that I'm presenting myself in the world in the way that I want. And so we can then just go in a completely opposite direction of really trying to control ourselves, trying to control our food, trying to control our lives, trying to control situations and people and circumstances and all this kind of stuff. Because if I can control how things go in the outside world, then I can ensure that I'm going to be okay on the inside. And so we have both of these situations happening. So again, I'm also always tuned into, all right, so someone's listening to this, they're like, oh gosh, I think I've got that one too. Yeah. So what do I do? What do I do? And, and this is really, it's about, first of all, recognizing, I recognize that I'm in the external feedback loop. I recognize that I have this control pattern. And getting something really, really important, because I think that, oftentimes I speak with women and they feel very out of control. Mm-hmm. And maybe they're feeling out of control with their relationship with food, or just feeling out of control, in their lives, that it feels like there's all these external forces that are at play that, that they have no control over. And so the thinking is, well, then let me try to get control, because the opposite of out of control is control. Mm-hmm. But here's the interesting thing, Debbie, and I think you'll really appreciate this because of the work that you do, is that the opposite of control is not out of control. The opposite of control is trust.
Yeah.
And so, to kind of come full circle to answering your question, it's like to be able to unhook from the external feedback loop and learn how to regain access to our inner guidance system. Because for most of us, we have been disconnected or disconnected ourselves from that inner voice, and we haven't trusted it. And maybe, over the years, we've made promises to ourselves that we haven't kept. I know that happens all the time when I speak with women around their relationship with food. Well, I swore off the sugar and then I went back to it, so I can't trust myself. Or, I made this decision in partnership, it didn't work out, and now I can't trust my choices. And so, we betray our own inner guidance because we feel like it's let us down. And so it's really about learning, okay, how, first of all, am I ready? Am I willing to start to, unravel from these, these patterns of control and being dependent on the external world? And am I willing to start to get to know what's actually going on inside of here? And that's the first step. And then, I mean, I can share more about kind of like what a next step might be, but
and I just want to stop you with right there, because first of all, willingness is my absolute favorite word, because I see that as the biggest game changer for either keeping us stuck or allowing us to move forward. It has so much to do with our willingness. Like I'll never forget people coming into, when I had an office, we had the PBT Institute and then home office, and there was a woman who came in, arms folded. I want to heal. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You have to give all that up. No, you don't. But it's just so funny as you were explaining about the opposite of, and that's so beautiful, the opposite of out of control is trust. But I remember going back to the time of being a new mom, feeling completely out of control. And so I became the ultimate control freak because I was trying so desperately. And I remember feeling that. And there was even this one instance. And now here I was, my husband, we brought home my daughter, and then he went to work. My mom wasn't around because my father was in the hospital. My mother-in-law wasn't around because she thought my mom was going to be around. And here I was. And I was like looking at my daughter, like, I don't know the first thing. How did they even let me leave the hospital? Right. And I was absolutely searching for control. And I'll never forget, just even I nursed and it didn't work for me. And so it was the bottles, and they weren't, I was trying to organize, like, let me just get them all ready for the day. And they weren't lining up in the refrigerator. And if I tell you, I lost it. I was like, it was something so simple. And here I was, I guess, in my world at the time, trying to have that sense of control. So I absolutely saw completely out of control. I don't know this role. Let me try to regain control however I can.
Absolutely.
And until the trust settled in.
Absolutely. And I relate to that with my relationship with food. So, I was this health and fitness expert who looked like I had it together, who looked like I had all the knowledge in my head, and I could not stop obsessing about food and then binging and then I would be highly, highly restrictive and counting every single calorie. And I remember keeping this book, this journal, of writing down every single minute of exercise that I did. And someone had told me that the first 20 minutes of a workout doesn't count because you're trying to get to I don't know, whatever. And so I would work out for 20 minutes, but that didn't count. Then I would start the timer and work out for an hour, and then it was every single calorie, and the guilt that I would feel if I went over, the guilt that I would feel if I wasn't at the ideal thing. And it was all consuming. And go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's where food gets really tricky, because here we need food. It's not like we can just get rid of it, but when we're not using it appropriately, not using it to nourish, when we're using it to punish, it just becomes a whole other thing. So think about it. If we're stressed, if we're anxious, then we reach for food to calm down, and then we berate ourselves and we get all angry at what we just did. Well, isn't that the perfect setup for another binge? So how do we extract ourselves from that way of managing the chaos?
Yeah, wow, such a great question. This is actually so important, because I come across so many smart men and women who are struggling with their relationship with food, who are caught in this, this binging and obsessing cycle and guilt and shame and all this stuff. And they're making the same mistake that I was, frankly, that most people are making, most smart people are making. And that is this: being fixated on trying to solve your food issue by focusing on food, by trying to get the right diet, by trying to, control your portions, by trying to moderate, by trying to cut out the sugar. And I'm not saying that any of those strategies are horrible strategies. What I'm saying is that they are insufficient strategies. And what I'll liken it to, Debbie, is for people who are have dealt with betrayal, the first layer, maybe when people come into your world, they're focused on what that person did. They're focused on the outside, right? This is the situation. This is what's showing up in my life right now, and this is what's happening on the outside. And it's the same thing with food. People will show up and they're like, well, this is what I need to eat. This is what's happening. And what I say is, as long as you're focused on the food, it's a surface strategy. It's not actually addressing what's driving you to food in the first place. And the pathway of freedom from food addiction, food obsession, binging, whatever, the pathway is to be able to address what's driving you to the food in the first place, getting free of that, and then the whole problem goes away.
I love that you're bringing this up, because I see it so often where people think, well, if I change my behavior, I'll get a different result. And they wonder why that's short-lived. And it's because, yes, here's the behavior, here's the result, right? But what drives the behavior? It's the belief.
Totally.
Right? So isn't that where we need to begin?
Absolutely. I have this little analogy I share with my clients. I say, okay, so like the actions, the behaviors are like the leaves of the tree. And what's driving those are your attitudes. Those are the branches of the tree. What's driving those branches are the limiting beliefs and the delusions that are driving that. And what's at the root is the fear. And really, truly, until you're getting free of the fears and the delusions and things, you're just trimming the hedges, really, is what's happening, when you're trying to solve things at the behavioral level.
And I remember it was T. Harv Eker, and it was years ago. And I remember him saying, if you, change the root to get a different fruit. And he gave this analogy and I loved it. It was, imagine you have a lemon tree, right? And here's this lemon tree, but you want apples. So you take the lemons off the lemon tree and you take a bushel of apples and you take them onto the tree and you're like, oh, look, I have an apple tree now. And then the next season you're like, oh, I have a lemon tree again. It's like, well, of course you do,
That's amazing.
And that's what I think we do, right? We just try to take off the lemons and try to put on the apples. But unless you grow an apple tree, the only thing you're going to get are lemons.
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah.
So it sounds like the work you're talking about is planting the apple tree, getting to those beliefs, because that's what's driving all of it. And it sounds like the way we're using food is just a way to just get us either, let us know we're on course or off course. So what does it feel like? What would it feel like for someone so they can recognize, oh, well, I'm really off course? And what would it feel like when they're on course?
You mean as it relates to someone's relationship with food, or
just so they know they're listening to their intuition, they're on track with what's in their best interest, with what they're being guided and led to do, versus they're completely off track. And so they may be using food because they're not feeling well.
That's fantastic. I love that question. So, I'll just speak into how it is for me today, really, where I first of all, I don't think about food unless I am actually hungry. That's just, and that, Debbie, that was not something that I was constantly eating when I wasn't hungry, and I wasn't stopping eating when I was full. I mean, I did like the concept of being full and then satiating and losing interest in food was completely foreign to me. Like I literally didn't understand it. And so just being able to, not think about food, and then when I feel a tummy growl or I feel myself a little bit hungry, to be like, oh, okay. And then to feel what do I feel like eating right now? And for me, it's less about, does it have sugar? Does it this or that? It's more about, do I feel like something light or something heavy? Do I feel like something, that's going to sustain me for the next number of hours? Maybe it's got some healthy fats in it right now. Or is it really hot right now? Do I feel like something that's kind of cooling? It's going to be cooling to my system that maybe has these qualities. And so there's a whole sort of inner dialogue, and maybe that inner dialogue isn't so conscious. It just all sort of happens in a moment. But those are some of the things that go on for me personally, where there's this sort of natural dialogue that I'm having with my body and my own inner sense of what feels good for me.
And you know what though? But it sounds very loving. It sounds like self-love and self-care. Hey, what would you like? What would feel good? What do you need right now?
Totally, totally. So, and I just want to say this too, is that kind of like taping the apples on the lemon tree. My experience is that we can't slap this way of being with food on ourselves. Like it's like reading a book and saying, "Oh, that's how I'm supposed to be," and then trying to do that way of being without it authentically coming through you. If there's stuff that's still weighing on you, that's having you feel scared, because that's, for me, food was a lot. It was about guilt, and it was about a lot of fear. I was afraid of doing it wrong. I was afraid of, just blowing up and like, getting really, really heavy and feeling really uncomfortable in my skin. I was constantly uncomfortable in my skin, by the way, no matter what I weighed. And then there was this constant feeling of guilt, and this fear of, am I gonna have enough, or did I eat too much? So, for example, being at a restaurant, and I don't know it's kind of funny to me, but the fancier the restaurant, the smaller the portion sizes. You ever notice that?
Go figure. And the more expensive it is too.
And the more expensive. And so I can't tell you how many times I'd be at a nice restaurant and, get my food and look at it and just immediately, that's not going to be enough, and start thinking, what's in the cupboard? Like, what am I going to have to eat when I get home? Because I'm going to do the good food thing here in front of the people, but then what am I going to have to raid in the fridge or in the cupboard when I get home? Because that's not enough for me. And so this fear of there not being enough, or this guilt for having eaten too much, or just not knowing, was it too much? Was it not enough? And here's what I find, Deb, and this is what's so fascinating. And I realized this. I wish that I knew this when I was in the depths of my struggle, just like you wish you knew things when you were in the depths of your struggle with motherhood, is that what shows up on our plates is a direct reflection of what we're wrestling with internally.
Oh, I love that. What do you mean?
So if I'm wrestling with, was it enough? Or did I eat too much? Or is this going to be enough? Or I don't think it's going to be enough. I'm most likely wrestling on a deeper spiritual level. I'm wrestling with feeling not enough or feeling too much. And that was absolutely, that describes how I was for many, many years. There were things that I felt like I was too intense, I was too loud, I was too big, I was too emotional, I was too sensitive, I was too serious. And then I wasn't this enough. I wasn't, smart enough. I wasn't talented enough. I wasn't, fill in the blank enough. There was just this lack. And so it's this constant internal issue of lack, or of too muchness, but too much of the wrong things. And so this is just one example of when we're wrestling with that internally, it shows up on our plates. The problem is when we try to solve it on our plate. And so the solution, there is absolutely a pathway of getting free of those things. Today, I'm not weighed down by that stuff. I actually feel just like enough just as I am, which is amazing. And that's reflected on my plate today too. So I think that, to kind of go back to your question, we can actually look, and many people will say it's so unfair, with alcoholism, you just don't have to drink alcohol. Or smoking, you don't have to smoke, but eating, you have to eat. I think it's a gift, because I think that we have, on average, people eating, roughly three times a day. We have this opportunity about 3 times a day to assess where we're at internally, how we're doing. We get this direct feedback, and I think it's an incredible gift.
I love that. I love the idea of seeing how you're doing and how you're feeling by what your plate looks like, and it's a representation of it. I never looked at it that way, but it's really so true, because if it's not enough, where else is it not? Where am I not enough? Where am I feeling I'm not enough? And if it's too much, where am I feeling I have to maybe just be too much just to prove that I'm worthy, lovable, deserving, whatever it is.
Yeah,
So
or where do I too much, like, one thing that I was told a lot growing up was that I was high maintenance. So where am I too, or I talked too much, so I was just too much for people. They couldn't handle me. And then so I was constantly trying to reel myself in, stop being so bright, stop being so loud, stop being so big, stop being having to talk all the time, and so we kind of, this is another way that we stop trusting ourselves, because I'm too much of what I'm not supposed to be. I'm not enough of what I am supposed to be, or I'm just not the right kind. Something about me must be wrong. I can't trust myself. And then we go back to the betrayal.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. So trusting yourself with food. Run us through a day of what trusting yourself with food would look like. Let's say you're on your own. Let's say you're out with friends. Give us like what it would look like if you trust yourself around food now.
Yeah, I mean, kind of what I shared. Like for me, I mean, I have over the years calibrated to a way of eating that just works for my body. So it's not based off of anyone else's diet plan. Although I could say, oh, well, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of that, but it didn't come from the outside in. It came from the inside out. So I
And
have
right there, it's trusting. There are, so many different varieties out there. There's, paleo and keto and vegan and vegetarian, like all these things. And I trust what my body needs and what I need. So I can just take a little of this and a little of that.
Totally. So for everyone, that's going to be different. For me, because I tried to do the intermittent fasting thing for a while, because that was what, that's the big thing. And for me personally, it makes me feel nauseous, to not eat and to go and move on with my day, or to work out and to like it. I'm like, no. To start off my day with coffee is horrendous for me. For some people, it's the holy grail. Fantastic. So, it's beautiful. When I work with women, we don't even focus on food. Mm-hmm. And women will find what is freedom for them. And I love that, because for some people it's, they've got too much energy around sugar and it just feels really good to not have it in their lives. For other people, it's like, I used to binge on chocolate and not be able to stop once I started, but now I can enjoy it every once in a while. And that feels really great. Right. For me personally, again, it's waking up and just and sensing what do I feel like having, and obviously having the things in the house that I know already work for me. It's very easy for me to prepare, but it just, and then once I eat, feeling satiated, eating for me what is enough, and then feeling satiated and just really not thinking about food again until I notice a tummy growl.
I imagine there are so many listeners and viewers who are like, that sounds so freeing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was the kind of person who I'd be in the middle of eating breakfast, already planning for lunch. I'd be in the middle of a conversation with someone starting to fantasize about going to get peanut butter at the store. Like, I couldn't be present because I was constantly thinking about food. And then I would eat. And then it was like, oh gosh, was that too much? What should I have now that I ate that? And then planning the rest of my day based off trying to recalibrate because I ate that, or, it was just, there was a level of insanity. I always say, and people who struggle with their relationship with food in this way know what I'm talking about. It's like having a second job, Debbie. Mm-hmm. It really is, where there's just, it's like that, like that ticker tape that you see, like, when you're kind of watching, like, it's like there's just this constant thing that's going on where you're interacting and you're smiling and you're kind of looking friendly and you're looking like you're present, and there's a whole world going on inside. And what are they thinking about me? And was that stupid that I just said that? And what should I eat later? And what should I have now? And do I look fat? And I feel so uncomfortable in my clothes. And I mean, it's constant. And so to actually be able to say, I don't think like that anymore. Like, I'm just present with you. I'm in my day. I'm just doing the thing. And then at one point I'll feel hungry and I'll look at my watch or clock and I'll be like, oh, yeah, it is about 4.5, 5 hours later. Because for me, I eat enough to satiate me for about 4.5 to 5 hours. I'm like, all right, body, what are we going to do? and then it's to the next thing. And it just is, it's so, there's a level of ease about it, and it has nothing to do with the food.
It sounds like you've exchanged the anxiety of food and all of that internal chatter for ease and trust and freedom.
Yes.
And beautiful. What do you want to make sure everyone knows as we wrap up?
Oh my gosh. First of all, I want you to know that freedom is possible for you. I spent so many years just thinking, I just want to get control over the food. I just want to be able to control my portions and have better discipline and, not give into the cravings. And that was as far as I could think. I couldn't even imagine. If I heard someone like me talking, I'd say, that's not me. You don't get it. You're not in my life. You don't have my family. You don't have my situation going on right now. And so the first thing that I want to say is that control, again, I know we talked about it earlier, but control, if we're trying to plug into a paradigm of control, it'll get us about 80% of the way there. We'll think that we're actually making some progress. Oh, good, I'm staying away from this food group and I'm doing this over here and I'm feeling really good and I'm so happy and I've lost this amount of weight and whatever. The problem is that control will actually, after that 80%, it'll actually block you from truly getting free, because the paradigm of control is completely separate from the trajectory of freedom. So you actually have to learn a different way of being. So when I say that freedom is possible for you, freedom where you only eat when you're hungry, where you stop eating when you're full, where you feel intuitively guided by what to eat, where you can go into a social situation or a restaurant and be present with the people and not be stressing out about what you're going to eat. Like, this kind of freedom is absolutely possible for you. And just to go back to your favorite word, Deb, it starts with a willingness. Mm-hmm. A willingness to not know. A willingness to set aside everything you think you know about what you need, about how it is, about what you got. Just set it all aside and open yourself to consider, am I open to an entirely different approach? Because everything that I've been doing has got me to where I am. If I want a new experience, am I open to setting aside what I think I know, becoming willing, and considering, learning a new approach?
So beautiful and so true. And I know there are so many people who are like, oh, I would love that. Well, it's possible. Where do people go to learn more about you and the amazing work you do?
Oh gosh, thanks, Deb. So I want to share a couple of resources. So depending on when you're listening to this right now, I actually have a 5-day video training called the End Your Food Obsession 5-day video training that is happening July 26th through the 31st, 2021. July 26th to 31st, 2021. So if you are hearing about this before that or during that, then I highly, highly encourage you to come. So I'm going to be sharing the 5 keys to having freedom from food and really feeling comfortable in your skin. We have had hundreds of people take this training and get incredible results. And what I've decided to do for your community, Debbie, really, really special. So this is, it's a free 5-day training and you're absolutely welcome to join. But what I've decided to do for just your community, just right now, is to actually gift you the VIP upgrade for free. So with the VIP upgrade, what you're going to be able to get on top of this incredible training is you're going to be able to get, at the end of each training that we live stream into Facebook, you're going to get an insider discussion and debrief and Q&A session, on Zoom in a private setting. So you're going to get way more access to me, all the support that you need to really get the distinctions that you need. I've put together a whole booklet, the End Your Food Obsession Companion Guide, that you just get, and you also get lifetime access to the entire training. So that is my gift to this community. And in order to take part of that, you can just head to freedomembodied.com/VIP. freedomembodied.com/VIP. and come and play. It would be absolutely amazing. I would love to support you in this process. So that is my invitation for those of you who are getting this in this particular time frame. And for everyone, another resource is
I was going to say, for those who just didn't make it for that, give us more.
Yeah. So if you head to my website, freefromfoodaddiction.com, I've got a quiz on there, the food addiction self-assessment. The Freedom from Food Addiction self-assessment. This is a great place for everyone to just start, to really help you start to get clarity on where you're on track, and where you might be stuck or holding back. And it's going to give you, based off of what you answer, it's going to give you some recommendations for your next steps. And so, I recommend that everybody take that assessment because, this whole journey starts with clarity. It starts with willingness and an openness, and then it starts with getting clarity and really understanding, what's getting in the way for you and where your opportunities are that are going to serve as the turning points on your path of freedom. And so you can do that at freefromfoodaddiction.com and just take that quiz, and that's another great way to get on the path.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So everybody, if you are betraying yourself by how you're managing your relationship with food, or if you're just struggling with a betrayal and using food to help in some way, Debbie can absolutely help you. I want to thank you so much for your insight and your wisdom and just who you are. You're just so brilliant with this topic, and you've lived it, you know it, and you have a wealth of information to share. So thank you.
Oh, Debbie, it is such an honor to be here. And I just want to thank everyone for listening and for being with us here, because this is, I feel you. And I'm so committed to your freedom.
Thank you. I love how Debbie shared how to know when we're on track and how it shows up with our food, and when we're off track and how that shows up too. Stay in touch with Debbie by going to freedomembodied.com/VIP to get the VIP upgrade to her End Your Food Obsession 5-day video training. And if you missed that, head to freedomfromfoodaddiction.com where you can take the Free from Food Addiction assessment. Here's my biggest takeaway. What shows up on your plate is a direct reflection of what's going on internally. Worried there's too little on your plate? What could that mean about some other part of your life? Too much on your plate? What could that mean too? A great assessment tool to see what we may not have noticed, and with a willingness to look, mine and Debbie's favorite words, we can get to the bottom of it and go from anxiety around food and inner chatter to ease, trust, and freedom. If you haven't already, be sure to take the post-betrayal syndrome quiz, which you can find at thepbtinstitute.com/quiz. And like the show, subscribe, rate, and review, and tell all your friends about it. Thanks for listening. Can't wait to be with you next time. And here's to your breakthrough.